I am absolutely thrilled to welcome back to this Talks Auditorium, Steve Berlin. I saw Steve at, I think it was Gas last year, and you were signing some books of your, in fact, you were signing this book, Prop. You were signing this book for me.
Yes,
I think it's quite
yes.
different. Thank you so much. You mentioned that you're working on something about what eating your mail. Absolutely thrilled that you're here to do the presentation with us.
I want to thank you, Suzanne, for having me give this little presentation on behalf of Stampex and your organization. It's kind of a fun presentation. I've actually had two articles published in the American Philatelic Journal over the last 10 years, actually, on this particular subject. And it's kind of one of my favorites. And it's one of the aspects, you might say, of my overall topic, which I call the devil's nail. And I think you may have had that on your introductory slide that I saw that may have gone out to other individuals. But this is my topic, and I hope everybody will enjoy it. And it's important that what is bugging your mail, you have to figure that out, because otherwise you can have some major disasters with your collection. This happens to be a very humorous postal card from the Clyde Francis Fur Company. And it says, you got the bug. And the bugs can get your mail and your covers. And that's basically some of the presentation that we're talking about this evening or this afternoon. So what about damage to the stamps and covers? Weather is a major factor. Earthquakes. Covers were covered in earthquakes as well as weather disasters, fire, even robbery. And as Suzanne pointed out, I just finished publishing a book on mail robbery that some of you may be very interested in. But poor handling of stamps and covers are also a major factor in what you might have on your hands when you're picking up the stamps and the covers. You have to be careful. Your hands should be clean. The hinges and mounts that are applied to stamps and even covers sometimes can cause some damage to the mail. Creepy and crawly things. We're going to talk a little bit about some of these critters, and kind of gives you a little um, creepy feeling on the back of your neck after I show you some of these things. Even some small animals like pet rats and pet mice, if you should have them, can also be detrimental to your collection and have been detrimental to the Postal Service as well. As a matter of fact, in the early days, in the 1800s, England used to hire cats, or not hire cats, but used to have a budget for cats to be in their mailbag area, in their storage area, to reduce the possibility of rats and mice running around destroying the mail. I don't know if you've known that or not, but that's true. Big animals. Well, crawly things we're certainly going to talk about. You're all familiar with silverfish and how they can damage the mail. Cockroaches. You don't think of some of these bugs, but they can be quite detrimental. And they all always go after the sugar part of the cover. In other words, the glue on the envelope to seal the cover. That seems to attract a lot of these little creepy crawly things. Book louse, slugs, snails. Snails is a big thing in England, actually, particularly in the springtime when they come loose and the area is quite moist. And they have a tendency to climb into mailboxes in the UK. I don't know if they like the UK for any special reason, but it seems to be pretty common in that area. Certainly, ants are everywhere, and they have a feeding frenzy when they have thousands of them accumulating on top of a cover. Beetles and termites. All of these are some of the interesting crawly things that we're going to talk about. Well, there are some animals that can do it too. We mentioned mice, we mentioned rats, but did we mention German cows? Not only German cows, you have dogs and cats as well, smaller animals that can always cause some problems to your stamp collection. I unfortunately have one cover. Unfortunately, I did not failed to put it in this presentation, where it was my daughter's dog took the mail that was ready to go out into the mailbox, and he chewed off the whole side of the envelope before it went out. So naturally, I had to take a picture and keep that cover, but I failed to apply it to this presentation. But I'll learn to apply a couple other ones that we'll see later as well. So there are other things. But interestingly enough, politics comes into play with everything we do. And in this particular slide, which was put out by National Stamp Collecting Month in the United States in 1999, and talking about insects, spiders on stamps. Actually, we're commemorating these bugs on stamps. Kind of, those are the politics, I guess. Who wants a bug on a stamp? I guess there are people that likes bugs on stamps. Well, this is something, do we kill the bugs or do we print the bugs on the within the Postal Service? Well, we mentioned ants and termites. Here's a cover from Romania to Brazil in 1948, and you can see that the whole side of the cover here has been chewed away, as well as the other side of the cover. And this was a cover sent to Brazil. I have another cover that I'm going to show you a little further on. This was a collection of the Hooven family correspondence, which was a pretty large correspondence in Brazil. But here you can see what the damage has been done by just chewing off the sides of the cover in the course of the mail, and sometimes just sitting in the basement. That's where these covers basically were held. We can get into more sophisticated postal history. U.S. Civil War, 1861 to 65. These are very, very expensive covers. And you can see these were attacked by termites. And you can see just how it just ate up some of these covers and the stamps. And these covers would normally go for about 20,000 US dollars in an auction or in a sale. So you can see how scarce these covers are. And this basically talks a little bit about the war, which is not what we're really talking about in this particular situation, but it's the cover, eaten by termites, as you can see. Another one, also eaten by termites, another pair of Confederate stamps. In 1862, this cover was. Again, causing major disasters to a very expensive postal history. And this is something we all need to be cautious about and not have happen to us in our collections. So storing your collection is very important where you place it in the house. So that's something, don't store it in the basement, particularly a moist basement. This is a souvenir sheet, actually, with actually the stamps on it. These are specimen stamps from India, from New Delhi. And this is basically a souvenir sheet that was made in New Delhi in 1931, as you can see. But here you can see little green areas here that were chewed away. And these are actually made by termites and ants. Kind of interesting. And here you can see some early destruction along the side here and the side here, probably eaten more by termites in these areas, but these were theoretically supposed to be ants that actually caused the destruction of the souvenir sheet. Well, how about cockroaches? Another friendly bug, you might say. This happened to be a cover and a captain of a ship's missionary trip. He was going from Calcutta or China to Calcutta, India, to meet his brother or his son. And consequently, he was put this cover in his pocket. And as he was traveling from one ocean to another, he didn't realize that cockroaches were in his clothes, eating what you have here is the wax seal, and also other damage to the net mail. But here is the handwritten notation that basically states that the wafer was eaten by cockroaches on board the Multan, which is the ship, and was enclosed in this envelope by John Townsend, who was the commander of this ship. And this was in 1850. So this is the earliest cover that I have with this type of a historical disaster that you might say was occurred to this letter. This is something a little more modern. This was in England, actually. And this was a cover from Calcutta, India to Kent, England. And this was in 1939. And you can see the nice Calcutta cancellation here. But here the stamp is eaten away again by cockroaches. And I think this is pretty interesting. Stamps was eaten on 7/17, 1939, prior to or while in the postal service prior to cancellation in Calcutta. Kind of interesting, this particular cover on its way to England. Well, advertising covers, as I showed in the uh, first introductory slide, there are two beautiful advertising covers. One, the upper one, was basically advertising bicycles, and you can see the beetle, which is actually artistic, not true eating the beet from eating the beetle, but how they made this. The cover was actually a beautiful advertising cover. This was advertising bicycles, and this was advertising Sweet Home Soap. But just looking at these, are just perfect for this presentation. Just great, two great advertising covers. Silverfish. This is an interesting silver cover as well from India in 1928. You can see the damage here from the silverfish all around. And it happens to be a beautiful cover. Unfortunately, it's just damaged, and the value of it, unfortunately, um, becomes lessened because of the damage to what has been done. But anyway, this was some tax stamps that may have been chewed up. And there was also some similar stamps on the back, covers on the back, stamps on the back. This was a cover from a dear friend of mine who passed away, Guy Dillaway, who was a very large stamp collector, dealing not in this particular situation, but he was kind enough to give me this cover because he knew I had a collection of them. Well, let's talk a little bit about snails. Snails are very common in the UK, as you're going to see. These are some terrific auxiliary markings, and this is a little larger, which is the same marking. But you can see here the damage that it has done to the stamp, which is no longer here, and the notation that is basically with us is damaged by snails. And this is basically supported by the dated postmark that we see, which basically states here repair duty. Repair was done to the cover, but the auxiliary marking is certainly demonstrates as to what caused the problem. There's a couple really nice auxiliary markings. Another one from Great Britain. This one, a little. I'm sorry. Let me go back here. I don't want to get pushed away. I'm blocking my date. So this is 1960. This cover, or 69, and again, eaten by snails. And in parts of Devon and Cornwall, apparently this hazard exists frequently at the Postal Service. And apparently it's a common snail called the Helix aspera, who like to winter inside post office boxes. So if you live in that particular area, um, expect to maybe congratulate a snail taking a piece of your mail. And that's another interesting thing. Talk about snails and whatever. I'll bring that, whatever I'm talking about, I'll bring up in a second, but I'm just getting ahead of myself. Another nice cover, also by snails, but also nice postal labels from the post office, official labels, all a little different. Here you can see it in red ink. And you can see the damage here to the stamp that was eaten by the snails, and also probably all along this upper ridge as well. Again, another one. This is a black auxiliary marking, handwritten, stamps eaten by snails. okay, in a letterbox. Like I said, they have the tendency to accumulate in a letterbox. Another one, again, this is called the Petersburg snail cover, which apparently is a little more common in Petersburg, but this apparently had must have had many, many snails having a feast at the time. And you can see again they were attacking the sugar from from the glue of the back of the cover here, and then you can see just some erosion here as well. But here, another nice official postal label, also eaten by snails in the post box, and that's signed by, I assume, the postal employee. Here's another cover, again, um, found in the mailbox, and this was damaged by both slugs and snails, and both comments are mentioned here. Here you can see on the official stamp slug damage, and down here is is snails. So it's a combination of slugs and snails. Many times you have rats and ants, all kinds of bugs that can attack covers. But it's nice when you can get the official labels from the Postal Service of any country for your collection. And this is what I kind of look for periodically. Here you can see some other markings that are fairly common, particularly with snails. And I guess they have different type manuscripts. Stamp found eaten off, stamp found eaten off by snails, box cleared of snails. And you can see this one we saw earlier. And there's all kinds of interesting markings that do occur. And as I mentioned, the spring weather gets milder, more moisture, and then the snails go into hibernation or whatever and start to eat whatever. Eaten by bookworms is another area. This is a terrific cover from Somali, the Booty Somali. And this is eaten by bookworms. And you can see the bookworms. This is a beautiful cover, by the way. Okay, with eight stamps, eight beautiful stamps, five different cancellations going from Somali to Hawaii. And during the course of the travel, you can see these little holes that have developed in the covers. And these were actually bookworms that bored through the paper and just made a very interesting cover, you might say, for my collection. Well, we mentioned some eaten by rats. This is a pretty scarce Tongan missionary cover. And you can see the whole side of this cover. And here, also eaten by rats and rodents. And this is, like I said, this was a cover coming from Tonga to the Arizona territory. It was a missionary cover. So apparently it came on by boat from Samoa via to San Francisco to Arizona. This was an interesting cover. And for those of you that may remember Sergio Sismondo, he was a philatelist, but also did a lot of official designation on covers. That was his special area of basically approving, you might say, and guaranteeing for the most part that that's what took place. And he gave me a certificate on this specific cover because this is really a beautiful cover, as well as several of the other ones that I've just shown. Well, these are fun advertising covers. And there's a whole collection of these covers where the mice and rats are eating the stamps right on top of the postcard. I mean, how obvious can you make this cover out with the rats and the mice eating them? Just terrific postcards. Here's another one. This one was from Egypt to London, England. And again, they write it on the front of the card, and you can see the mouse eating the stamp. Just some really clever postcards. But here's the real deal. This is a very interesting cover. This was on the bottom of the steamer, somewhere in the baggage area. And this cover was going from the UK to Australia. And the manuscript, damaged by rats, as you can see right here, damaged by rats on a mail steamer, possibly notated by the postmaster. This is the only recorded cover from this particular event, to my knowledge. But it's just really interesting how it just ate its way through the whole central part of the mail. Terrific cover from this standpoint. Here's another one eaten by rats. And you can see here all along this area. And here you can see the marking, the handwritten auxiliary marking. Okay. And it basically says it is regretted that this item has been damaged in transit by rodents. Most probable explanation for the condition of this cover is that it was contained in a mail bag that was gnawed by rats in the hold of another ship from Australia to England. The other one that I showed you was from England to Australia. So I guess tit for tat, you might say, as to where the covers were going. This is another interesting cover. This was during a balloon flight, a crash of the balloon flight. And the balloon actually released several males in a small bag. And when this landed in a cornfield, it was found a few days, or actually 2 months later. It fell on the 5th of June in 2010, and it was recovered in August 3rd, about 2 months roughly. And you can see that it was all eaten. And then it finally got a postmark. It didn't even have a postmark at the time. It was picked up and it was stamped for Springe, somewhere between Germany and probably the Netherlands in that area. But in either case, it's an interesting cover, eaten by mice in the cornfield. And this was in 1910. I showed you a similar cover earlier from Brazil. Here's a couple also eaten by mice and rats in 1948. And I was told by even the ants in this mining town, Minas Gerais, is a mining town in Brazil. The dealer that I bought these covers from was an Italian dealer, and we had a fun conversation on this. And he said that the mice or the ants and the termites in this particular mining town, he says they're just huge. They're just huge. And the way he expressed it, he says, you don't even want to go down there, they're so big. Anyway, these are a couple covers that show the damage in this, again, in this city in Brazil. Well, little music doesn't hurt either. Two first day covers, actually. The top one says this year they're going to lick us and not stick us. We're talking about the rats on the front of that cover. And here you can see the commemorative stamp. On the bottom is singer Frank Sinatra singing about the Rat Pack gathers whatever. And here you can see the rats, all the famous people of the Rat Pack, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., so forth and so on. Keep hitting the wrong buttons, I'm sorry. And this is just a cute cover. So just to break it up a little bit, eaten from rats, eaten to large animals. Here's a German cow. Believe that, a German cow eats balloon mail. This was, again, a bag of mail that crashed into an area of grazing cattle. And this was in the Netherlands. And apparently some of the mail spilled out of the mailbag. And when it was recovered, it was noted that the cows were actually chewing on the mail. And they had a terrific cancel that they made for this, where it said damaged and board papers and balloon cards partly eaten by German cows after landing in the field. I mean, how interesting of a cancellation that might be. So some of the balloon mail, this is another one that we're looking at, and I'm going to show you another one at the end, but imagine eaten by German cows. The cover that I was talking about was eaten by a German Shepherd dog, interestingly enough, which was my which was my daughter's dog that grabbed the cover before it even went to the mail, had the stamp on it, and everything was ready to go. And the dog actually chewed off the side of the mail where the stamp was. Unfortunately, I failed to put it in this presentation, but I'll work on getting that together later. So again, protection of your stamps and covers are very important wherever you store them. Think twice. So do not eat around your collection. That's the thing. You leave little flakes of bread or whatever that you're eating, and mice and ants have a tendency to find those things. Possible disinfectants. Be careful. Disinfectants ruining stamps and covers, and even animal traps can be an issue. Here again, a couple advertising situations on postal history, rough on rats. So you can see here, these are various chemicals being used to treat them. And another one, no traps, no poisons, different types of situations to destroy some of the mice and rats that might be in your presence. Again, a couple more advertising covers. These are in New York, 1901 is the date of these covers. One is Hooper's Fatal Food utterly annihilates red and black roaches. And here you can see the one on the other one again. Different types of roach powder, cleaning fluids, and so forth, and so on. Interesting advertising covers. Another one, flies may also damage your stamps and health as well. As a matter of fact, flies carry severe disease, and that should be noted as well. Again, two more advertising covers. And actually, disinfectants may even save your stamp collection, depending on how you apply this type of material to and from. Again, termite cover. A couple more mice and rats. Do you kill them or do you set traps for them? Here's a great cover with traps, and here you can see the cat also waiting to attack the mice. Here's the back of this particular advertising cover, and you can see that already had been eaten, probably by some mice or even rats in this particular cover. I think it's kind of appropriate to see that. So how do you protect your postal employees sometimes? That's something else that the postal services must consider. This is an interesting cover. You all know that many times dogs are loose out in front of the houses where the postman is delivering the mail. And consequently, this is a particular terrific advertising or marketing cover, you might say. It was a postcard, 1974, depicting, let me just get the screen off. Oh, well. Okay, let me go back. Depicting the cats visiting another cat in the hospital, and also the auxiliary marking here that you can see, that basically states delivery of this mail was curtailed because your carrier was endangered by a dog running loose in your delivery area. How appropriate is this when you're sitting and looking at cats and dogs? What a great picture postcard this is with this auxiliary marking. So what's on your mail? Certainly chemicals can be a major issue and can also be dangerous to the postal service. This happened to contain sulfur dioxide, which is a precursor to sulfuric acid, which is very, very dangerous to handle. This is the markings in this particular cover. Here's another one, soiled by paint. This is a cover from the Netherlands to England that was damaged in transit. And the UK violet cachet that's here basically mentions the postmark was handwritten postmark that was Door Reef Vikantiniga, I'll just say received soiled by paint in Dutch. And this was an ex von Osterbeek, who was a very large postal collector involving interruptions of mail. And he passed away several years ago. This was one of his covers that I bought at his auction years ago. Just a great cover with great markings. And here you can see another cover, Damaged by Cream, 1933. And again, this was a cover um, that was sent and got returned, was placed in actually postal storage. And in the storage is where the damage occurred. It wasn't during the actual delivery through from London to wherever it was going, but it didn't go there. It got delayed and put in the post, and that's where the damage by cream. And that was the situation in this particular case. Here's another one, damage by broken eggs in 1961. It's a cover from Sydney, Australia. Okay, that was a local postal delivery, and inadvertently the transit happened where it was, I guess, next to a box of eggs that broke open in the postal service. And it's a great label, basically stating the damage. And here you can see the eggs that were actually loose on the cover to Australia. Another cover, Damaged by Blood, 1963. These are terrific labels. And this, again, was another Danish cover from Utrecht. Again, it was a local cover. And the label floated off. Apparently a bag of blood was in the mail at the same time. And it broke open and it damaged this envelope or cover due to blood. And this is the marking on it, disinfectant from bloods. So very, very scarce interruptions of mail. This may not be so scarce. People have a tendency to throw things in the mailboxes, not just in Canada or the United States or anywhere in Europe or anywhere for that matter. But this, apparently someone threw a chocolate milkshake into the mailbox in Canada. And you can see the chocolate embedding on a part of the cover. Interesting, I think it was interesting because it was actually going to a drugstore in Ontario, Canada. But here you can see found in damaged condition at Toronto, and it was actually in a mailbox in this particular case. So these are some of the things that eat your mail. Here's another thing, damaged by oil or other chemicals. You can see two such covers. This was in Sierra Leone, and this was the United States, this cover. Also damaged by oil. So oil strikes your mail again in 1980. This was in the US. And the interesting thing here is that this is a penalty envelope. So the cover with oil is in the envelope. And this is the yellow little label that was attached. So it basically says, open carefully, oil on contents. Another interesting cover. Blue mail. Have you ever heard of blue mail? This is a cover from Barbados to St. Vincent that was damaged due to cleaning fluid called citricol. And consequently, the bottle must have broken open in the mailbag or in the delivery service. And consequently, this is what took place. And it's described, the incident, the postal inspector is on the postal inspection marking is actually on the back. And then this is the letter that came with it, the actual postal letter describing what took place, where the detergent broke open from the direction of where it was going to from St. Lucia and broke open. Well, I mentioned a lot of the material I talk on is the devil's mail. I thought you'd like to see a couple of devil's mail letters from business cards, you might say, for my collection. And If you find this exhibit offensive, perhaps you need an appointment with me. So I just want to let you know that. But in either case, these are some interesting covers, um, um, basically with devil's markings on them. This is a very dangerous biologics that are also carried throughout the mail that can spill open on you. This was a cover from the Nagoya University in Japan to a VA hospital, going to a Veterans Hospital in Salt Lake City, in Utah, in the United States. And this was the reddish postmarks and the stamps that were placed on this particular letter, coming from Japan to the United States. Very scarce, interesting situation. Crash cover from rocket mail. And apparently the mail must have been in the ocean somewhere. And the bag of mail must have been attacked, you might say, by swordfish. Here you can see the auxiliary marking. I've never seen an auxiliary marking like this before in my life. Of course, there's a lot of them I haven't seen either, but this is quite unique. You can see a fish cancel here, and this was a rocket cover, and apparently I have to assume it crashed in the sea, and apparently if it was damaged by swordfish or not, but the auxiliary marking was definitely applied to this particular cover. And I was at an auction and actually in London at the time when I saw this cover go up in a collection of interrupted mail, so I had to buy it. So it's quite interesting. And the next cover that you have, Suzanne, can scare anybody.
Okay, let's pull that one up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get too scared, everybody.
Mm-hmm. World War II, the bombing of Japan, the nuclear bombing of Japan at the time, took place in 1945. This was a cover that was found from Hiroshima. It was apparently in the rubble of a church. I had no knowledge of any of this before I was in Germany a couple of years ago at the big stamp show in Bern. This cover is in a box, in a radiation protective box, the mail. So it still has some radiation attached to it. It was on display at the big stamp show, and it was in the court of honor there. And I couldn't believe it when I saw it. So naturally, I took some pictures of it, and this is one of the pictures. The interesting thing was the cover was for sale at the show, and they were only asking $50 million for the cover. So I thought that was something that I couldn't afford. So like I said, I just took a picture of it. But I wanted to show it to you because I'm sure, I doubt if anybody who's attending my talk today has ever seen this cover before. If you have, then you'll just understand where it's coming from. And it wasn't sold, by the way, at the stamp show. It's in a museum there. And just, we talk about what's eating your mail. This can eat anything, radiation. So this is just another aspect of what's in philately and what you can do with philately. You can have all kinds of fun with philately, collecting any topic you like to collect. I like to collect crazy things like I've shown you. And I hope you enjoy it. And thank everybody for attending my presentation.
Thanks, Steve.
Have a great day.
And you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We hope to see you at our next Stampex show, at Virtual Stampex or in person in London.